Hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome to episode 2 of Sci-Finatics Live for 2024. As always, we're joined by an amazing panel of Star Trek experts to talk everything Star Trek and sci-fi. It happens to be Star Wars Day today, so may the 4th be with you. So we're going to be talking about mostly Star Trek on Star Wars Day, a little bit of a curveball there. But as always, I'm joined by my Sci-Fanatic in crime, David. David, welcome along to the stream.
Hey everyone, and happy 4th of May, Star Wars Day on Star Trek live stream.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes. As always, it's a pleasure to have my fellow Star Trek aficionado, Seán Ferrick from TrekCulture. Welcome, Seán.
Thank you very much. May the 4th be with you.
Yes. And it's also a pleasure to have Dr. Trek himself from Treklands. Want to welcome Larry Nemecek. Welcome, Larry.
Yes. Well, if you can't talk about Star Trek on Star Wars Day, when can you talk?
This is true. We've got a ton of stuff to chat about today. We're going to be going over mostly the last few episodes of Discovery, how we're liking that so far. There's a few really interesting episodes that we've had in the last few weeks. So there's a bit of stuff to unpack there. See what everybody's thinking about that so far. And we also might, after we've done that, we're going to have a little bit of a chat about the upcoming episode for next week, the 7th episode of Discovery, which is entitled Erika, and what we've got in store for that. And being Star Wars Day, it would be remiss of me not to do some sort of Star Wars reference. And I think we might have a bit of a chat about times where Star Trek borrowed from Star Wars or Star Wars borrowed from Star Trek. There's a few little bits and pieces there to unpack just to see where the two franchises might have sort of crossed paths in creative decisions and so forth over the years. So, for starters, let's get into the episode. What do we Face the Strange? That was episode 4 of Disco season 5. Just generally speaking, how are you guys liking this season? Because we're over the halfway point now. We're up to episode 7 next week. How are you guys generally liking the 5th season of Discovery so far? You're going to start us off, Seán.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving the pacing of it. I love the adventure of it. I love that. Going into this season, yes, massive stakes, progenitors tech, but it's not the DMA. It's not the burn. It's not, the same kind of, the universe is going to be destroyed in 5 seconds. Maybe it could be, but that's not the stakes we're dealing with. And I love that because I think while we're still getting our action and we're still getting our, our quick pace, we're getting a slightly more relaxed approach to the crew as well. People are getting a bit more time. Some people are getting even less time. Do you remember Detmer?
Yeah.
That's the mystery, but we'll see. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Are Detmer on Owosekon, did they make the progenitors tech? Is that why they've been kind of hidden away this season? But overall, I genuinely, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I cannot heap enough praise on Mary Wiseman this season. Just Tilly is back, and she's doing all the things I want.
Awesome. Larry, what are you thinking?
Well, I think this is... I hate to sound a little snarky here, but it feels like the original labor pains of DNA, the birth chaos, is finally settling down. It took a while, and each season has felt an improvement. It's been interesting as the years have gone by to hear people talk about, I loved season 1 and 2 all along. I mean, the plethora of opinions are coming out now, and only time will tell, right, at the end. But to me, it just basically feels like the show has improved every year. And yes, they're handling how to deal with serialized storytelling to the point where finally this season, it hasn't been an odd one off, but each show is picking up the secret of how to be a standalone and yet fit into the season-long arc. And each one, the way Strange New Worlds has kind of had out of the gate. And that you can, if you actually go back and look at a title, you might actually remember what that episode was and the tone and what was going on in each one. And now that they've got this down, I cannot wait for season 6. Oh, wait.
Right in the heart.
Spoilers.
Just when they get their act together.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
They've archered it. Oh, no.
Yeah. David, how are you liking it so far?
Look, from my side, it's got a bit of Sorry for my sister trying to sleep upstairs. But yeah, no, it's definitely a much more enthusiastic and I guess energy driven season. It's exciting. There's a bit of a quest, which is a good thing. Like you said, Sean, it's sort of eased back a little bit on the stakes game, but the stakes are still pretty high, as we sort of saw in the recent episode with in terms of what could happen to the Federation. But yeah, I think they're getting their shit together. But it's just a shame that it's so late in getting the shit together. But as Larry said, it's been a progressive improvement. It's nice to see. But I think we've sort of started to see a few people go missing in action a bit early, and it's kind of like what's going on?
Yeah, I mean that's never been. I think that it's always been a kind of a thing with Discovery. I think I've been saying for years. When we finally get to know the bridge crew on Discovery, and I think I just have to come to terms with the fact that we aren't going to. That's just it.
This bridge crew we've met. There's been more action among this bridge crew in 6 episodes than there was in 6 seasons or whatever of the other. It's someone has learned. We've already, and they made a big point of that. Did you notice how it was partly the Rayner introduction, but partly just let's make sure we go around the circle and let everyone have a name and a personality and 3 hobbies.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
In 20 words or less.
In 20 words. Right.
You better do it quickly because we haven't got time for any more than that. Yes.
All while we're servicing actually developing Rayner's personality. Go.
Absolutely.
But he's a good addition, I think, Rayner, to the cast. I think it's really sort of how would you say, balance things out a bit. It's given it's taken away from, I guess, the primary focus on Burnham, and it's kind of given they work really well together, and they kind of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, I think, and they're quite alike in some ways too.
I think his gruff, his kind of more disciplined and Machiavellian almost approach to how he does his work. It's so at odds with how Burnham operates that I think they're being a good balance for each other, because even though it looked like initially it was going to be, he will join the crew of Discovery and this will be his gradual softening, which we are getting, he is bringing that slightly grown-up edge to the ship as well, which I do think was required. Not every situation has the time to go around the bridge and go, okay, now we need to get your view on this one. Now we're going to park it. Thank you very much. That is, they fired how many torpedoes? Something like that. And I do think that this is a good balance introducing his character.
Absolutely.
I thought it's been handled really well. Number one, out of the gate, some people said, "Oh, great, you're just using Shaw from Strange New and having your own little gruff interpretation here of that." But it hasn't been that. It's been he's had his own track. They haven't made him go vanilla. They have not roughed down his rough edges too much yet. He still has that gruff, exterior, which was, but no, it's what the other thing, it's interesting that after an episode or two, his attitude about command, right, and his attitude about dealing with a crew was really, I hope this is what's going on, and it was being very clever. It's almost like it's the meta criticism of Discovery he represents. So when he and Burnham are having a face-off about command style, it's almost like people debating the look and feel of Discovery itself. Touchy-feely, new agey, let's go around the circle, versus just follow the orders, damn it. If someone's shooting at us, we don't have time to sit and debate. Picard always did, but we don't have time. Okay, true. Stereotypes, I know. But
it's a good point.
Anyway, there's been times words come out of his mouth that I feel like are some longtime fans' legitimate criticisms of Discovery.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yep.
Message from Chuck. Chuck, thank you so much, Chuck. Great panel. Hi, Nick, Sean, Dr. Trek, Larry, and David. I was about to say Larry David there, but
pretty wrong.
Pretty good panel. Yes, very good. All right, Face the Strange. Our time travel episode. This was a pleasant surprise. This one, I think was one of my favorite episodes of the season so far. We obviously we started off with the little meeting there with Mole and Lark and the arms dealer. I remember when I watched this episode, I sent Sean a message, and I'm saying to Sean, "What the hell race is this guy?" And we're trying to work it out. And I'm going, I definitely know this guy from somewhere. It's ringing bells, and I just couldn't work it out, and I'm messaging you, Sean, and you're saying I can't remember it all. I think you even asked Ellie as well, and she didn't know.
Ellie goes back and says, "Is that a scroll?" I'm like, "Do you know what?"
But I think a day or two later, I saw a Twitter post from oh my god,
the man is incredible.
Yes. He has got an incredible knowledge, and yes, he confirmed that it was the Anari, Anari weapons dealer. Anari was seen in Voyager in the Nightingale episode, as well as the Void episode, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where he came from. So finally, it's like, oh, thank God! Finally, I got the itch got scratched.
See, that's another thing about this season about learning. It's gotten to the point where I saw the species, saw the guy, and didn't think about, oh, what is that? Because lighting and all that. But the idea that they're actually looking through the catalog and pulling someone out just because it looks good and it's an easy update or whatever, and that it's fairly true to the original makeup is just another maturity sign of this season. Like someone's actually thinking, let's reach back and make connections. And some people might say that's fan service, and I would say it's used the universe. But I don't think in the first or second season, I mean, some of that happened, but I just think they're more cognizant of that now and doing it. And then when I saw him, I thought, oh, I wonder what that is. And rather than sit and spend 12 hours on it, I'm like, in another day or two, by the time I have to do second opinion, someone's going to come up with it, and I'm not going to sweat it. And lo and behold, yes, boom.
It was also a good sort of setup for, I guess, Mol and Locke, in the sense that more establishing, I guess, how far they'll go. They're like a Bonnie and Clyde of space. They kind of they're prepared to kill, but they're prepared to kill on certain terms, and they've got a code that they operate by. And I kind of like that. It kind of really humanized them a bit, or Breenerized them, and it was sort of very good to see. Like, if we came here, you thought we were schmucks. Well, look who's the schmuck now, with the foaming mouth with the poison latinum. It was a really good sort of play, and I think it really sort of set the episode up quite well.
I think to just totally agree with you on that one. And Mol's comment about, this is the same kind of thing that you would do to these people who are trapped here. It sort of hammers home the point of, yes, they have been villainous, but they're not villains. They are antagonists, but they're not, we're not the bad guys of the season where it looked like maybe initially that they were. What they are is they're devil may care. And it's, if you get in their way, you might get a bloody nose, unless you have done something quite legitimately to, piss them off, basically.
Yeah.
Fred, much as we know Fred was going to screw them over.
Yes.
Fred the Anarian.
The
his new name, Fred the Anarian.
Yeah. The writers have been very careful to make them, as you said, villainous, but also empathetic. I think they're in love. They're cruising the galaxy together in their spaceship, and I think that they've made sure that whenever they have killed somebody, it's been justified. Like this guy, is a criminal. He did bad stuff, on that other world, and then Fred was going to rip them off. They've made sure that they have had just cause to do it, and I think the way we sort of saw them in the Mirrors episode with all the flashbacks and everything definitely paints them, they're trying to give these guys a bit of character, a bit of empathy, so that we can kind of see, they're, it's a bit like last season with Book and Taka. We know Book's not a villain, but he was damaged from his planet being destroyed or whatever, and he went to extreme lengths. They're sort of doing a little bit of the same thing here,
but better.
Yes, but better. Yes.
No, I mean, you can tell when they're out of the gate. Two things. It was a bit of a spoiler, just because there's been so much talk and high fives about them in this year that it sat on the shelf, year and a half that this season sat on the shelf.
Yeah,
and they've talked about them so much that you got. And then when you started seeing so much screen time devoted to them, it's like, this is not going to be your ordinary Bonnie and Clyde with some empathy. I got the idea that was coming. Now, the idea that we eventually found out that Locke was a Breen, that was a pleasant surprise. I saw that was out there in the rumor mill. especially as they kept unspooling. But to go from what we'd always known of the Breen to the way he's appearing was a bit of a leap, and I really appreciated that. And that I may be getting ahead of the gun here, but jumping the gun a little bit. But I just appreciated they went to an unexplored area, both for its own sake and B, so that they had some elbow room to maneuver without everybody screaming about the way they done it and how they did it. For the most part, it was pretty uncharted territory, and low hanging fruit, even to torture another metaphor, and that they could go there. But having said that, yes, you just got the idea that there was going to be more here than meets the eye, just from the time spent on them.
Yeah. So all of the time jumps that what did you guys think of all the different time jumps? The little spider time bug or whatever that they revealed as being technology from the Krenim that we obviously saw in the Year of Hell double parter in Voyager. That was a nice little nod to the Krenim, because they were quite a formidable race, if I remember correctly, even by 24th century standards in terms of all their time tech and everything. So that was an interesting little link. And what did you guys think of all the different time periods they jumped to? Yeah, David, start us off.
I was just going to say, just on that time bug, I mean that like seemed like the atom bomb of the I guess the temporal wars. I mean this technology could be so destructive, and to have it sort of, I guess, in the hands of the black market, it's pretty concerning. You'd sort of think the temporal authorities would have perhaps done something about that. But yeah, that's quite a little time bomb, that one. But I guess in terms of the jumping around, I found it interesting and exciting. I thought that it was good to sort of see, them go back in the past and a little bit into the future. But they're weaving quite a complicated web in doing that, and it's possible maybe to pull the threads of that web a bit, or that carpet, I guess. And I think it was an episode with a lot of complexity in it, probably a lot of techno babble. Don't take it too much to heart. I think just enjoy the ride. I think you even said that, Nick. It's better to rather than interrogate it too heavily. But it was quite a lot of content in there, and quite a lot of good moments in there as well. That's for sure.
I remember I was actually I didn't realize I'd missed it until I saw the season 1, season 2 uniform making a cameo again. And I think I definitely it wasn't my favorite in the beginning. I've definitely warmed to it as the years have gone on. So it was nice to make it see a return. There's bits I loved, absolutely bits I loved. I loved when it was sitting in San Francisco. And you have the welder guy is sitting there like, I will say, because I'm just keeping an eye on the comments as well. If this, because they did say, I know there was an interview that Cinema Blend published almost a year ago now, where they were talking about, yes, we will be addressing Calypso.
Yes.
This better not be it.
Yes.
I think.
I mean, there was definitely a nod to Calypso in there, because they had Zora listening to 1950s show tunes or whatever it was, which is Doris Day. So there was definitely a very, very solid nod to Calypso in there, but it was kind of vague enough that you go, okay, was the Calypso just like another like jump that we just didn't see, or was it, you could kind of tell that was a definite nod to that, but it was vague enough that you could kind of go, it's, it could be, it could be not, it's sort of, yeah.
And we're talking 42nd century by that jump, because I think it was 1,000 years that were mentioned in the Calypso episode from when the crew had departed, I think, something like that.
Zora tells them that they'd only been dead for decades. So
okay.
Yeah, if you remember. Yeah. But the thing that was surprisingly pleasant about that episode, it was like, yes, it was a lot like Shattered on Voyager and some of the other time jump episodes. And the idea that, well, two or three things. One, and this is why I love this, and it just kind of kept rolling over me as I watched it, because I enjoyed it. And it was like, well, why am I enjoying this so much? Well, it's almost like the meta of after the big bads, right? And we mentioned the burn and the DMA. I just want to say the DNA. The DNA.
Yes,
that too.
Right. You'll be DMA'd if you don't DNA. The not just about the tone and the pacing, but this season and the early episodes, and this one in particular, felt like someone woke up and said, oh, wait, we've done 5 seasons already? We haven't done any, but we've done people's families. We've done some of the token look backs when you get, but this is the first time they actually embraced or everyone stopped running for a moment and remembered, oh yeah, we used to wear blue uniforms. Oh yeah, there are people who have come and gone from this cast that aren't around anymore. And even if we just mention them and don't pay them to be guest stars, looking at you, Jason Isaac, and everybody, if we just mention them, it's powerful enough because they've been so forgotten in the past. And literally with the jump, they're in a different, millennia. But that was the big thing. The other thing was the time bug, because it started to dawn on me. What do we know about the temporal wars? We don't even know whether it's the temporal war or the temporal wars, but we don't know that much. And yes, if this was like a loose nukes that's out floating around, what's it been, 150 years, 200 years since that's been 150 since the burn, and the temporals were before that. It's so sketchy. It's not even front of mind to us, this whole period. So as much as I don't know about Academy being in this century, at least it will keep filling in some of this as they talk about history. But we've not had any real impact aside from just intellectually talk since Daniels and Archer in Enterprise talking about the temporal wars. So one thing, it brought it home, like, oh my God, if this was how dicey the weaponization of time was by then, if you can draw the metaphor to loose nukes and the nuclear, and now we still have nuclear weapons and they're still scary, but we're trying to back off about it because you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Best you can do, and if that's the best they can do. But it's the first time we actually got a taste, I think, of what the temporal wars must have been like. You know what I mean? Aside from having this fun time with it just felt like they were finally comfortable enough in their skin, or somebody woke up and realized they had that much material to use by now, in kind of a way, and then to be so lackadaisically funny about it.
I think more about it. There was a lot of comedy completely with Stamets, like seeing, because Stamets is almost completely a different character from the way
and he acknowledged that,
but what I love as well is that now, so the rules of convincing people about time travel. So okay, Larry, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you die in 176 days. So would you mind spotting me a tenner?
Good point.
Do it now. If you wouldn't mind terribly, I did think that. I mean, they settled on Arium was going to be the temporal cameo, and of course Bryce was there, but Bryce didn't get very much to do. But so Arium's going to be the big cameo, and it was fun. It was great seeing Hannah Cheeseman back, but that fun was dented with. I mean, I could see where Burnham was going with it. Surely there was some other way, because it wasn't even, I felt, I think I made this point in the ups and downs, is that it wasn't that Arium can tell when you're lying, or Arium can tell when you're telling the truth. It wasn't like, she is a cybernetic lie detector, which I think maybe is where they were going with that. But in the end, it just felt like Burnham was just like, I'm going to ruin your day. And you know what? It's going to be so ruined, you're not even going to care about breaking the warp bubble, and you'll do it no problem.
But she got more lines than she ever had, aside from the day she died.
Yeah. Mind you, this is becoming a regular thing with Burnham now. I mean, we'll get to it in a couple of episodes' time, but she did the same thing to the poor bugger in Whistle Speak episode, where she just unloaded everything on the poor guy and told him about technology and about the denobulans and the tower and everything, and the guy's having a meltdown. It's like, did you really need to tell him that much? Like, hang on, this is like what you did to Arium a couple of episodes ago.
I said I kept wanting to shoot her in the arm with an arrow.
Yeah,
I bleed. I mean, he didn't.
I think it was great, as you said, Sean. It was great to see Arium. I think that was fantastic. I do think it was potentially a little bit of a missed opportunity that we didn't get a little cameo from. It would have been difficult to get Jason Isaacs just for one moment like that, but it surely wouldn't have been difficult to get Anson Mount in, because isn't he? He might have been shooting next door at the other studio. They're doing Strange New Worlds. They can say, "Hey, Anson, can you just walk from one studio in Toronto to the next one and just come in here for a few hours and just do a quick pop in?" I would have thought that would have, I think, elevated. That would have really elevated the scale of the episode, I think if he had have made a bit of a pop in. What do you guys think about that?
They kept it a bit too in-house, I think.
It was essentially a bottle show when you think about it. It was a bottle episode.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, it's like the choices they made. I mean, it's going to be one of those things when there's a little bit of a buffer of time distance to talk about maybe what they wanted to do and what they were able to do, either with availability or even budget. And if you'd had him pop in for a cameo, it would have been awesome. But is it with him in a current show? Would it have been too much to say we're going to not even just so much pay you, but would it have been too much to only have Anson in for a 2-minute scene? You know, it's like, well, if you're going to have him on, use him more than this. I mean, I could see the criticism coming both ways.
Yeah.
It just feels like without him, this was such an endearing show. It's almost like they didn't need guest stars to pop in the way we think about the way that Voyager had Seska come in and some of the others that were and Dr. Chaotica and all that. This was such a shock to see them even self-referentialize themselves that I didn't need that. I thought of it later on, and when they would just mention name-check Lorca and Landry and everybody, and even Osira, it's like, well, we don't need them because, or it gets you on the edge of your seat. Oh, we're going to see them? Okay, we didn't, but they're on to the next time fragment so fast that you're not really. It didn't worry me. You know, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in the episode. I mean, you know, as you said, you had the I'm going to call it the Diamond Syndicate, but I know it's not the Diamond.
The
Syndicate.
Emerald Chain.
The Emerald Chain. That's the one. I got it in my brain from earlier today. Sorry.
Yeah, because
the Emerald Chain.
South Africa in the 90s.
Hang on, no. You were half right because back in DS9 days it was called the Orion Syndicate, wasn't it?
Correct.
So
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you're half right.
Yeah, and you also had like Reno, where she was in there for a couple of times. She was in there for the assist, and then she was also in there with the quite deceptive. You're going through a bit of a time loop, are you? You know, to Stamets. Yeah. There was a lot of content in there, and I think it was really good. You know, you had the interesting Calypso element. You had Burnham versus Burnham, which was pretty cool. We kind of haven't seen that before, and they're building starships on Earth. Coming back to that from earlier, I don't know that I've seen that too much in the past. Usually you do them in orbital space docks. I think we did see the Enterprise was built on Earth in the J.J. Abrams version, but I think
that's is it the only instance we've ever seen? I think the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie where you saw the Enterprise being built on Earth, I think is the only time we've seen that, isn't it? Normally it's
built on Earth. Yeah.
I think normally it's in orbit in one of those construction facilities or whatever.
There was someone the other day only shared an image of the Galaxy class being built. Now it was on Mars, but it was on the surface. Now that's I think that's since been retconned by Voyager. Voyager's take on Utopia Planitia. But then I just look at the comments. Protostar's at least docked, or at least there is another version of a Protostar class sitting in San Francisco Bay. But it's been a busy decade. The 2380s were a busy decade, you know.
Yes.
One little complaint though is the beaming laziness. Yeah. While this did drive the plot, I guess, in excluding the two, like Burnham and Rayner from the what was going on with the time thing, and Stamets I think had, because he had the DNA change with the
I thought it was great to go back and pull that out and use it.
Yeah, exactly. It was really good to do that. But this let's just zap into the ready room because we can't be bothered walking. I mean, seriously,
what is it?
15 feet. We can't be bothered to walk.
Exactly.
I know. If this is how the 33rd century is going to be, I mean, are they going to end up like Baron Harkonnen, floating around on the repulsor lifts? It's ridiculous. Bloody will walk, you lazy
Was it the
bastards.
movie? The movie, what was it? WALL-E. Remember in WALL-E, all the cruise ship where everybody was, in those big mobility kind of chairs, and everybody was obesely overweight, and
It's
like that.
No judgments.
We're 6 episodes down. That bugged me for a couple of episodes, but it feels like they did it and then backed away all within the span. The last hour or two, they haven't done that so much as they did there for a couple of episodes because it was really getting annoying.
Yeah.
And even to the point when the tri badges or what tricoms weren't working, it's like all of a sudden I realized, had they had this protocol all along in the 30-second where it's the insistent little impatient annoyed double tap, or was it just because when they weren't working and they were doing this, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I was under the impression that they could program in like one default location or something. Like they could go, okay, I'm going to program into this thing, the ready room as my default speed dial. But beyond that, what is it like? Just read your mind in terms of where you want to go. Because there've been situations where it seems like this season,
32nd century, Nick.
but the thing is,
amazing.
If it seems like there's a lot of situations that have happened this season that if they had an actual transporter chief in a transporter room, there would be a lot of things that wouldn't get past the filters, or there'd be, there just seems to be, whether there's nobody manning the transporter room anymore, and it's just there's a lot of stuff that's breaking down with this whole site-to-site transport link thing that you could potentially remedy if there was an actual staff member on duty in that job, maybe.
It's a big ship, Nick. The transporter chief got stuck in one of those endless turbo lifts that just kind of flies through infinity. And
I'm so late for my shift.
Inside Discovery, there's a lot of interior space for turbo lifts. We know that,
yeah.
And this is why Chief O'Brien is the most important man in the galaxy.
Very, very true. Very true. What are we?
And the second most important person in the galaxy is Kona, because nothing is ever on a table. It's the most minimalist Starfleet ever.
Yeah,
true.
And they leave every episode. They go off. They put the new piece in the puzzle, and they go off and leave it sitting in the middle of a table for the neighbors' kids to come in and walk off with it. They're not watching closely.
Oops, I broke it.
And do you notice also no one ever eats a full meal on, like, whenever they have a meal, it's like a tiny little portion on a large plate or something, or there's these little measly portions. I always remember, like, wasn't it in season 1 of Star Trek Picard when Riker made the pizza and they only had one slice of pizza each, and he goes, "Oh well, Soji, you get 2 slices of pizza." And it's like, you tight ass Riker, like give your family more than one slice of pizza.
Have you ever had Riker's pizza?
Going around. There's a meme going around, and it's like, this massive buffet spread at the table. It's, every American high school show ever, as the kids come down for breakfast, they have one bite of this thing that the parents have clearly been up for about 7 hours preparing, and I'm late for the bus. I better. You will sit down. And you
guys, they've got to fit those Starfleet uniforms somehow. It's just the nibble off the side of the plate. It's the secret.
Yeah, and they can't have creases in them. No creases allowed. So yeah. Okay, let's. Any other comments on Face the Strange, or should we move on to Mirrors, episode 5?
You almost get the idea that I know Carlos was out talking about this a lot, but that they were like taken aback by how much people enjoyed it. That they weren't ready for that. I don't know. It was just kind of a funny tone. A pleasant surprise. It's pleasantly
a good
surprising.
Surprise.
Yeah, but I think there was just a general. I don't know. I just thought it was the most well-regarded, well-received episode in a long time, especially this season.
Yeah, no, I'd concur. Yeah. Yes. So, episode 5. I think you coined the term, didn't you, Larry? Jelly Breens in this episode. I think.
No, that was Carlos. I stole that.
That was Carlos. I you stole that from him. Okay, fair enough.
It was a great bit. Yeah,
love that.
Yeah. What did we think of? What did we think of the Jelly Breens in this episode? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd concur.
For both faces, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
The only thing that, this is, I don't know. The only thing I thought, obviously, back in DS9 and whatever, when we had them looking like this, I always kind of thought, based on the helmet shape, that the Breen would look something like this. Because,
Not Princess Leia. Yeah.
No, I kind of thought, oh yeah, Breen's a cold planet. It's ice, and everyone's talking about how cold it is all the time, and the helmets clearly have snouts on them. Surely the Breen look like polar bears. You know, that was so. Yeah, that was kind of that was where my brain went. So yeah, so
it's like the dinosaurs. Only it was, where did the polar bears go after the great meltdown on Earth? They all invented warp ships and went to their own place. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I love Chris Thompson's comment there. Ducks. They're a race of ducks. That's actually what they are.
Yeah, like, oh, they all look like Howard the Duck. Yes, that would have been. Yes.
Absolutely. Donald and Thought Daffy. Yeah.
It was interesting how, like, I guess we're on the ship, you know, where you know, we sort of did the go back in time to when Mole and Lark sort of first got together, and the ship sort of is very catered towards aliens, or particularly humans. It's kind of like, you know, the Breen are still maintaining their oxygen, their own environmental suits in their own spaceship. Which is a fairly large spaceship. You'd sort of think that
it's huge. It's like the Death Star kind of thing, you know. It was enormous.
And why would you sort of cater to the one rather than have everyone else have to be in this? I guess they're in encounter suits or whatever you would call it. Wouldn't you think you'd sort of have Mole sort of, like, I guess, cased up in some way, and then they can maintain their identities perhaps? But yeah, it just seemed very strange that this huge spaceship has an breathable oxygen atmosphere, perfectly caterable to human beings. It sort of is a little bit unusual.
So on that, I actually have a theory, because if we go back to DS9, and Weyoun talks about he visited the Breen homeworld and found it's very temperate, because everyone assumed that because of the refrigeration suits, it would be this frozen wasteland. It turns out that it wasn't at all. I think feeding into that is that now that we know what's underneath a Breen's helmet, it's much more about this utilitarian uniform. It's a very militaristic look. That it's less about catering, say, to a human, suddenly we can breathe our own atmosphere via our masks. I think it's less about that and more about this is how the military looks. This is how this, or because we've only seen, these select Breens so far. I mean, perhaps there's massive fashion parades of what other Breen look like. So I think it's more to do with everyone more or less looking the same. Especially when we've got three different faces we can pick from: our metallic face, our jelly Breen face, and I'll call it our lock face. So that's how I took it from that it was less about look or catering to couriers like Maul or other races, and it was more, we look like this on Sunday, we dress in this on Wednesday as well.
The one aspect I thought was really good about the makeup, or their faces in the sense that they could change between these two forms, was that, okay, this is why the Breen joined the Dominion, because they saw a commonality between themselves and the Changelings. They saw something familiar in their facial structure or whatever. Oh, you can change your face too. Okay, I can relate to that. So,
if you will.
Kindred.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, if you're going to, I said it earlier that it was great for them to pick the Breen. The Breen are going to be the ultra big bad that Maul and Locke are dealing with. And can I just say that I squeed when they mentioned the Zenkethi, and I'm still hoping they pop in, because the only thing more Breen than the Breen is the Zenkethi, as far as being a completely blank slate. They got one mention for one need of one episode, DS9, and
I think they got a couple. I think a couple of episodes they got name dropped in. I think wasn't it? Yeah. Cisco was talking about some skirmish that he had on a previous starship or something, or those. Yeah,
but they've only been a name. We at least had Breens in their suits, which were intriguing, right? But we never went beyond that. And the Zenkethi is one step, and there was a war, so they were a major player on the stage, right? So aside from that, and maybe we'll still see them because they did get mentioned this season. But if you're going to go there, the upside is, yay, here's all this unexplored territory. The downside is after 40, 50 years, this better pay off, because if you shoot and miss, and just the whole of why were they mysterious? What was the expectation? Finding the Weyoun line that throws us the preponderance of what we all, if you said Breen, people say, oh yeah, the cold suits, cold as Breen and all that. and getting back to that detail and remembering to factor that in when you're designing and conceptualizing what the Breen are going to be as this payoff. It'll be a cool thing and something that hasn't been explored yet. You'd better aim for something that's really unusual and different and not just the same old, same old. And there's some nuance. The basic explanation, well, this was our form. We could do the other. And then over time, as we did tech suits, maybe the design is to blend in and be, faceless military like stormtroopers. But the other bit is it takes energy to be hard shell, then I'm still grappling with the thing that they invented suits to stay normal once they got off their planet, and that's to accomplish because they're the really outlier sentient humanoid bipedal, but we're the ones that need these suits to do this. Otherwise, we're just like you, and we can operate in all environments and use your docking collars and all. I'm still trying to get to the point we get for the show, which is that Locke was like an outcast and a traitor to his class and a traitor to his race and all that. And I mean, I get it intellectually. I'm still trying to live within my bones about that's what's going on here. But the fact that they went to all that trouble to give us something different, I'm really willing to wrestle with it a little bit. And again, that interview with Carlos Cisco, where he was talking about, as you suspect, they develop all this, and then by the time it gets scripted, and then by the time it actually gets to screen, how much of the original full concept gets, because people were confused, I think, about the whole two-faced. Just from what you were given in the episode, people were confused about what's going on here. What two faces? What? Yeah,
there was a bit of a Mandalorian feel to it too, I guess, with the keeping of the mask on. I sort of got from as well, which is kind of like you don't disrespect yourself by showing your true form to others, like lesser species. There was a bit of that going on, which was interesting.
Mandalorian. I'm not familiar with that part of a franchise. Is that from some sort of other franchise? Yes. There, I'm not
sure. Starting with Star, but that's as much as that's where the commonality ends, and some of the actors. Yeah, yes, that.
And what about the other aspect of this episode? Obviously, saw us have a bit of a outing on the bridge of the Enterprise, the ISS Enterprise. Obviously, come across from the Terran Empire and the Mirror Universe. What do we think about our little escapades on the Enterprise there?
To actually, funny enough, to go back, Larry, to your earlier point, or to have sorry, Nick, I might have been yours, about having a cameo from Pike in the Time Bug episode. I can't have been the only one who wasn't looking forward to a goateed Spock. Even a picture on a screen, I would have settled for a picture on a screen. You know what I mean? But it's like, because this episode, this is a direct sequel to Mirror Mirror. It's 60 years on, but this is the first time we've seen the ISS Enterprise since Mirror Mirror. So, and we do get at least a reference to that, like, that the Chancellor of the Terran Empire didn't really have a happy ending, which we know because we've seen DS9. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I've gone very back and forth over. Have to be the Enterprise, you could use the sets. It could be another Connie, there's no issue with that, and I've gone. A lot of people thought it
was going to be the Defiant from the Mirror Darkly episode of Enterprise.
Right.
That people were
Mirror Darkly, right?
Yeah.
Which wouldn't have been ISS unless they converted, because it was originally a Prime Universe starship.
Yes.
No, that would have been cool to have had somebody. What was fascinating to me was the whole little mini legacy built around the plaque, and the whole bit about the refugees who were trying to flee the Terrans and then make the jump to another quantum universe, which was like, okay, that's when they. But the fact that they had a plaque, and that there's a 5-digit start. Which wait a minute, what is this? It's a 5-digit, which means it's very Berman era. And it's 32 something. It worked out to it worked out to 9 years before TNG season 1. So it's like if you want to say, if you don't want to get on the path of saying, well, the Stardate system and the Terran, the Mirror Universe developed differently than it. But if you take it that way, literally, then it was in that time frame. So they were busting out, which which would predate all the mirror universe you saw in DS9.
Yeah, it seemed to be a little bit. I was
So if that
struggling
was
to get
the
my head
fall of the
around
Terrans, that
exactly
would
where
mean
it was all coming from in different angles, because they also had the reference to Saru in this shot here, which we saw in that what was the two-parter in Discovery?
Right.
Terra Firma. Yeah. Okay. So that he had the uprising and everything. So there was like coming from different directions.
They just said it was a Kelpian. They didn't say Saru, right?
Oh, but
everybody just leapt and said
know.
It
was Action Saru.
They said Action Saru.
On that, Larry, that's a good point, because it's at least heavily implied in season 1 that Georgiou and Burnham eat Saru. It's heavily implied. Whereas, of course, now that of course doesn't then line up with Terra Firma, but you're thinking Carl has the power to send Georgiou sort of wherever. But then if that's the case, where did this ship come from?
It's a brave new timey-wimey universe in Star Trek.
Yeah, it's
so
like
nothing never has to be nailed down ever again.
I did, and that's thus is the power of Action Saru.
Yes,
but we were. It was funny. Actually, I think we made the point of the video, and we were like, do you have the time to sit there, metalwork a new plaque and everything? And then someone, you should just saw a 3D printer, and I went, all right, fair point. But why would you leave the Terran Empire logo on it if you've clearly made one and you've left the Terran Empire and you've got away? The whole point is escaping. I don't like, there's some symbolism that it's okay to move away from, so we had a bit of a giggle with that one.
We grew up in Germany in the 30s and 40s, but there's just some iconography that we just can't give up.
Oh yes. And
I know. What I was throwing down there. So there's definitely bits. I mean, I think it's a lot of fun, this episode, and it is. I mean, when you think about it, primarily we only really spend time in sickbay and the bridge. Of course, if you're going to do the Enterprise, you have to do the bridge. I mean, you just have to, because you have to. Someone's got to sit in the chair, and Burnham does, and it's great. And I loved that gag. Hit it, doesn't feel right. How about we just fly?
Yes, that was fun.
Also, the moment where she sort of looks at the station where Spock would have sat, that was also pretty poignant as well.
And I've got to say how taken I was with just that simple line. It's like, oh
yeah.
The thing that surprised me about this one was, I just intellectually, we'd seen the Enterprise bits, the teases along, and I was like, oh, and the minute they see it from afar, it's like, oh, okay, oh, this is the show with the ISS Enterprise. Okay, and, oh, they're using the sets from Strange New. Okay, fine. And I was just kind of intellectually going along with it and didn't think about it until she said oh, that's the station where my brother would have sat. And I was like, oh, they actually wrung a little emotion out of this whole sequence. What I wasn't ready for was, because this was the Breen episode, the Breen reveal, and even some Kelleran stuff, right? Raynor got to wax on about some of his Kelleran bits, which were fun.
Yeah, I was wondering where this was.
I wasn't ready for the fan explosion of the reboot of the whole Enterprise, 2022 versus 1966 thing erupted again. Like these people had been dormant. And it took, it's like the Enterprise had to cross the Discovery radar. Nobody says this during Strange New Worlds, but it took it coming on to Discovery to trigger those people. I don't know. That was like, really? We're going to go this again? Really?
Yeah.
It's the Breen show, guys. Forget that. Just watch it.
Let's have a moment of sympathy for Reese too, by the way, who his big dream was to see the Connie class, and he kind of missed out. It was kind of like he didn't get that ride, that gig to take it back to Fed's HQ. Yeah, commiserations there. Yeah,
that was it. Actually, Chris made a very good point that we picked up. It's like they took the time to set up a moment between Raynor and Reese, that Raynor knows that Reese is a big Connie fan, and then 1 week later, there's a 23rd century Connie. Just give us that 1 second. 1 second. Raynor turns to Reese, because we do get Reese smiles. So we do get that, but just have Raynor go.
We get a 1 second smile out of the poor bugger. He's been talking about the Connie class since the start of the season. There's one in front of him, and all he gets is a 1 second shot of him just smiling. That's all. What a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
And then to rub salt in the wound even more, Burnham says, "Oh, Owo and Dedma, they're flying the Enterprise back to Starfleet headquarters. Cut to shot of Reese going,
Good thing that Detmer and Owo were on their extended shore leave. No, they were in their quarters, but they were on extended shore leave. So, I think, I genuinely, I don't know. They must have been filming something else. I mean, just for them to be as absent as they are.
That'll teach you, Reese, not to have enough outside projects.
Yes.
It has. I mean, this season was. I was checking on this with the year delay, but they actually filmed it from June to September-ish, June to October. So I haven't had time, but I want to go back and see what Doug Jones and what all of them who were missing were doing in late summer, early fall of 2022. They took him away.
I think so, so, because even Doug Jones as well. So he's not in this episode at all. He's on the floor in Face the Strange. Now, all right, yes, he's in his uniform. But
it's all
they stole that shot from a previous season. They didn't. That was a reused shot from a past episode. Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, Joe,
same thing.
I'm nearly happier for poor Doug Jones to have not had to get into makeup to lie on the floor for that one. I'm actually happier that he's reused.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, kind of, I suppose, he's not in whistle speak either. I mean, where is he? You know? And that is just another thing of was in, actually, Hypno Amber, Doug Jones was in What We Do in the Shadows last season. He was actually, I wonder, was there crossover actually in terms of filming dates? Now, that's a very good point. But because I miss him, I like Saru. I really do.
George in the Green Berets. That's why Sulu
does it feel like we're going to cut back to him at some point and go, oh, by the way, Tarina and I got married last week. You totally missed it. It was a great show. And, it's like, kind of feels like stuff's going on that
we're just doing that.
Yeah.
I was like, progenitor thing still going on. Anyway, kind of, here's my vows. I don't know. I mean, definitely we need to cut back to it because we need to see him. But particularly and this is the kind of the thing about they didn't know it was the last season. Right. So what we know as an audience, we are running out of episodes. There's not that many left, and we know a scene was added on. And we know at least in the context of interviews, yes, Saru's in that scene.
They've done a pickup shoot, yeah.
Yeah, so there is at least one more scene. I would like more episodes, please.
Yeah, I kind of feel like from the stuff that I heard that there was a relatively extensive pickup shoot of scenes shot. So whether it's, everybody going around hugging each other and crying and saying bye-bye and whatever, who knows? But I mean, I hope, going back to poor old Reese and the Conning class before, hopefully at least at the end of the season, they'll have said, oh, Reese, you can leave the Discovery now, and he goes off to be the captain of the rebranded Constitution class or whatever, after they've given it a bit of a run through the car wash or something,
I like that. And also,
change the bridge.
Surely there's booby traps and stuff on an ISS Enterprise. You could make that an escape route.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh yes.
Extra shuttlecraft at the end of it, though. When they were trying to get off.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Right. That blew people
somewhere.
And
but here's the thing. Remember, it's what is it? It's 800 years old, 700 years old. It was Terran. Then it was commandeered by Terran rebels who wanted freedom. So you could, if it was just, what am I trying to say here? If it was all duct tape and baling wired up together, if it had been through battles, attacks, runs, skirmishes, and they had glommed things onto it, I'm totally willing to have them have some kind of a cloaked. I mean, a lot of people were saying, wait a minute, how did they escape? What? Nobody sensed that.
Because they actually said earlier in the episode, they said we've scanned the shuttle bay and there's no shuttles. It's like, but Book said, oh, but there's this other ship here that's got warp engines. It's got a cargo hold. It's got enough room for at least 2 people plus supplies. Isn't that a shuttlecraft? I don't care if you call it a Terran warp pod or a shuttle. It's a ship that can travel at warp with engines and a space for a few people on it.
It's that tricky Terran cloaked 700-year-old technology that no one else ever saw before.
It's also the temperamental.
Yeah,
sorry, you go.
I will totally accept this as well if this is fact. So in this wormhole, I will accept the fact if time is just paused in there because I mean the ship looks bloody well for 800 years old.
Yeah.
But if it I know it's not said, but I'm gonna my own headcanon is just like no, it's kind of like time is meaningless in there. So I'm just going to ignore Discovery checking in with Burnham and Book. Obviously, time is passing in real time on the outside, but I choose to ignore that. And you know, time is paused in there. That's why it looks pretty pristine. Nothing to do with the fact that they didn't have to rebuild the sets for Strange New Worlds. And I am fine with that. That works for me. There we go. That's now canon. Okay.
And David, you made the good point earlier about why did they just fly into this aperture wormhole thing without sending a probe in first? Because Burnham says to Christopher, will we be able to communicate? And he goes, I don't know. It's like, why don't you send a probe in and try, you know?
Instead, let's send the captain in. Yeah, exactly. And it's, again, it comes back to sending the captain into dangerous situations. It's like, and it's like, I know this goes on all the time.
Talk about a throwback to TOS on some of these episodes. Captain, no, I was just disappointed that the aperture the wormhole didn't open with a big, loud galactic skies bass string twang.
Yeah.
Now I'm
like
thinking
the aperture in V'ger in the motion picture. As they went.
I want to get that sonic charge from Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
That sounds that just goes right through the back of your teeth. I want one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. But the Enterprise was a little bit tetchy too because it just took Mole to stick her fingers into the under the console to get the impulse engines to overload. I thought that was a bit sort of very quick to sort of cause a bit of quite a reaction, I guess. Did you guys sort of feel that, or?
I know what you're talking about. She just opened up a panel and poked about for 2 seconds, and then half the bridge exploded.
We don't know how long they'd been there to pre-rig. Let's take the ship in 2 seconds. Self-defense, but who's going to be after us as we chase this? Well, if they expect to be, I'm kidding.
Might have been a booby trap.
They were there before them, so right. They had time to rig the multi-hollow, Spider-Man plane off.
True.
Yeah.
Poor old Locke. What's going to happen there? It's like
is Jelly's coming
the playground.
Yes. Good that we're getting some Star Wars references in on Star Trek on Star Wars Day.
We're going to beat the segment, though. We're going to shoot them all there.
Yeah. What else was there? Was there anything else about? I think we've covered most of the.
There is one thing I do want to say. The thing I really loved about it was Locke and Burnham's conversation, and you can see that Locke doesn't care about the progenitors tech. Locke cares about Mole,
yeah.
Like, what if we came in together? And I think the same is true vice versa. I just think Mole is in a very protector mode. They've got this Eriga. We don't really know 100% about an Eriga. What does Mole feels like she needs to do something to protect them both, whereas Locke is just like, jail can be safe. I do like to see that. I like to see this softening of them. And it sort of ties into, again, not villains per se, antagonists for sure, but not villains.
I was surprised that Burnham knew what the hell an Eriga was. Like, it was like she seemed to know a lot about this. I would have thought that sort of thing would be very, like, the Breen are a very secretive kind of race. Nobody kind of knows all that much about them, yet she seemed to have a lot of understanding about what a Breen blood bounty is, It's like, where did this information come from? She didn't. I thought it seemed odd to me that she didn't have to go. Oh, can we look up the computer about what an Eriga is for the Breen or something? Because the Breen wouldn't have even been around in her time.
Maybe
the first contact with the Breen or whatever wasn't until sort of TNG type era.
That's true. Although they've been retconning, now we've known about denobulans from long before. Well, hold on a second. There have been species come along that were not part of like Cardassians, that were not part of the original series, but they've been predated to be now. So you can't go by that. What? And I think I'm right on this. There's one point where Michael, because they've seen Locke in their encounters, right? It's not prior to this, but she was surprised to find out he was Breen, right?
Yeah.
And Michael knows everything. So from all the dimensions and the centuries, but she's lived in this century long enough to have the benefit of their database. And she didn't know. So that to me, that's a barometer. So if she didn't know that's what a hard shell Breen looks like, that's what I keep calling him, then
I like
that really isn't well known to the Federation at large. So, I mean, if the Vulcans could keep on far a secret for 100 years and 200 years, then
this is true.
Then that should be nothing. A Breen could keep, and the fact that people think they're mainly about being cold. Oh, look, it's not. I mean, it just feels like there's an awful lot about greeniness that's still not known, so they can be off in their thinking. But yeah, so then when she does know something, it's the kind of thing that you hear. It's a myths and legends, and erga. So anyway, I'm willing to forgive a lot of that just because the Breen are so weird, and they
It's strange though, because I guess with the war, with the Dominion War, you would have had like casualties, Breen casualties that the Federation would have, picked up. There would have been, prisoners of war. There would have been fatalities. You would have tried to render medical assistance. You would have had to probably have got a bit of an idea of what was under the, under the mask during that time. I don't know. That to me may.
Maybe they practiced a self-destruct that no one ever got to them. If you didn't know what a Romulan looked like for 100 years.
Well, maybe Kira made a report or something, because she was wearing a Breen uniform at one point on DS9. So maybe she kind of made a note in Starfleet records or whatever. This is what the Breen looked like.
It's
just
PS.
Yeah, yes.
I know why they didn't have any captured
and it
Breen.
smells minty.
I know why they didn't have any captured Breen, because they're holding a thermal detonator.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Return of the Jedi reference for those.
Yeah.
I love it. I think there's been more Star Wars than Star Trek today.
That's all right.
Maybe
so let's move on to Whistle Speak. Probably.
Hey, first comment about that.
Yeah.
Did anyone think that the whistling sounded a bit like a naturalistic R2D2 at the beginning? Maybe I'm on my own with this one, but I was getting a strong R2D2 vibe when I first heard that.
All prep for May the 4th today.
I think so. Maybe it is.
I'm just you did homework for this.
Yes.
No, the thing that struck me about Whistle Speak is I think it's one of the coolest titles ever. This whole episode was about the first thing that struck me was this is like, now we're just going to sit back and relax and have an old throwback show with aliens and locations and lots of native extras and a reflective show. And it's going to be a little bit slower moving, and it's okay because it's a standalone time in a season where we realized what standalone episodes were. But most of all, as it ended, I went, wait a minute, what was this? Well, they talk about the Whistle Speak at the beginning. And then nothing ever comes back around.
How did it play into the plot in any way?
I kept expecting, and for it to be the title, it's a cool title. But I thought, what's the payoff? What does it come back and save nothing? It didn't.
Yes, I'm thinking Tilly's going to need to be in the chamber at the end, and she's going to have to whistle something to get it to stop vacuuming them or whatever it was going to do. But yeah, you remove that whole Whistle Speak reference and the bit at the start, it doesn't change the story in any way. It wasn't used in the plot in any form.
No, I have to agree.
Whistling to say, much less Tilly picking it up. Right. And the fact that Michael was a xenolinguist. I mean, I thought some of the wordplay was cool. The fact they rhymed, that they had multiple words for concepts. I was waiting to hear some comparison to Ferenginar or something in Rain, but and the fact that, and I love that word compeer. It made me look it up, and it's an archaic word, but it literally is like community and peer. So it was like, this is a classless society with 3 genders, but it's a classless society. And I thought that's a really nice, it just struck me as there's this concept that was all laid out in the beginning. And by the time it got scripted and shot and edited, some of the pieces may have fallen away. I don't know. We'll hear about it maybe eventually. So I love the push into linguists and the fact that they touched on Burnham's original academic training just for a moment, but then it just wasn't a payoff.
In large ways, I agree. I think this is an episode that will be probably best viewed as a bottle episode, even though it isn't, because it does advance the overall arc. We get another clue, or at least we're set up to get another clue. But I think this is kind of the you put it rest, kind of take a breather episode.
Yeah.
And it remains to be seen with 4 episodes left in the season if was that a good idea or not. It's very, very, very TOS. This one is very TOS.
It was. I just found this episode to have a few, like, when you start thinking about it, there's a lot of plot holes in it. Like the scene at the end when Obaz is like at the door and Burnham's saying, "You got to beam me in," and she beams in literally in front of him, so he sees her beaming in. But they show this shot of the room, and it's like, oh, okay. So there's a perfect spot right here where Burnham can beam into the room completely out of eyesight from this guy, so that she could be in there to convince him to open the door without having to magically appear in front of him and break the Prime Directive. It sort of seemed to me like, why didn't they use that as a opportunity to not have to break the Prime Directive?
Oh, just because they could finally get a transporter beam through didn't mean that their sensors were up to the same scale. I guess you're going to beam trust sensors that aren't all there. Maybe, I don't know.
It's funny that they hang a lampshade on. Look, we're going to have to. Rayner says we're going to have to answer for this Prime Directive violation. We're going to do this. And Burnham's going like Prime Directive, Schmime Directive. And hey, that's grand. But I've seen the argument being made. I did not think this while I was watching the episode. I've seen the argument being made that, well, because the Denobulan scientist installed the tower, there is a question of Prime Directive, and had it already been kind of violated, or is there is there loophole
violation or whatever? Yeah.
Now I have to say, in watching it, I kind of just went, did Burnham just have a quota or something this season? I haven't broken the Prime Directive this season yet, so I think I'd better. And
just hearing the phrase Prime Directive uttered was like, how TOS are we here? Much less TNG.
Yeah.
But it's a good point, because I think that this Denobulan weather system that was put in, this weather control system, I mean, I don't know how far ahead the Denobulans thought about this, but, it needed some sort of routine maintenance, and you can't just sort of install it and it's going to look after itself. You need a few isolinear chips, parked from here to there. Who's going to do that? So I guess at the end of it, it kind of, already 4 out of the 5 towers had ceased, and their little populations presumably had died. To save this 5th one, you're kind of going to need to reveal to say, well, by the way, this is how you're going to fix this shit. It's kind of like, I think there probably needed to be a bit of a reveal to actually do that. But I think Nick, you did sort of point out, did the whole deck of cards need to be exposed? You could just sort of say, you could have done that in a more controlled way, a more contained way,
yes,
which allows,
because she completely spilled her guts to the poor guy. She told him everything, and it's like, okay, I get that you appeared in front of him and he's a bit surprised, but did you kind of have to go through the entire history of the Denobulans and Starfleet and literally just tell the poor guy everything? That's a lot to dump on the poor guy.
And he was stressed. He was
set of TNG Blu-rays was a little much too. I thought it was.
There's a making of special on this episode that's really going to cover this.
And the Roddenberry Vault. Here you go. And
the other thing that struck me as a little odd in this episode as well. Let me just get you guys' take on this, because I'm not sure if I'm right or not, but just clarify this for me. How they found the puzzle piece at the end was because there was an inscription on the vial of water which had the number 5 written in. Was it Helenite or Helen? It was written in Helemnite. The number 5 was written on the vial, and that's the reason they knew to go to Tower 5 to find the puzzle piece. Is that your understanding?
She had her big graphic there of the 5 numbers and circled 3 as the third tower is the working tower.
Okay.
And then,
So let me just show you this. This is the vial. In the blue circle there, that is the number inscribed on the vial, and the rock wall with Tilly's hand on it, next to it, that is number 5 in Helemnite.
That's
So
clear as day.
can someone please tell me how, when they said this, when Tilly's got a hand, she's counting the numbers on the wall, this is number 5, yet if we look at the vial, it's got a completely different symbol
well,
on
the
it.
one on the left is Roman Hellenic, and the one on the right is Arabic.
Yeah.
Is this what we do? There were 4 lights. Yeah, but
it's in Windings.
I think during the disco light scene that there was maybe something scratched on the glass. I did a few freeze frames where Burnham's face was in shot, and there looked like some of this glyph type symbol thing on the glass, not rather than the top. I think it looks really obvious what you've got on the top there, but obviously there's not a match. But I think maybe during the disco sequence in the beginning there might have been.
There are scratches and stuff on the glass, on the side of the glass, but I didn't notice any actual any what looked like letters or anything on the vial. I looked at the close-up shot they showed, and then it's got this obvious symbol, looks like it's written in pen or something on the top of the vial there, but it didn't match the number 5 on the wall. And I'm thinking, hang on, but that's not the right number. So
what's funny about that is, like, I mean, and I'm going to say this might sound very apologist for a second, but one thing that we've been hearing a lot, particularly over the last couple of years, I remember the first time I had this conversation was in the context of season 2 of Picard, is that we've gone from the days of TNG where you could write, the recipe for soup on a wall and no one's going to see that. Now everything's in 4K, it's in HD. I think it's more likely that if it doesn't look the same, it's because they're not a match. It's something that's like David, like what you were saying, is that because I do remember hearing scratch. It was scratched on the glass. That's what I took from that, and so I haven't freeze framed it yet myself. And this is why I realize this might sound very apologist because they look different, but also I know that in the making of these, they're as aware, going, someone is going to go through and they're going to frame by frame this, and they're going to HD this, and they're going to look through everything,
and they're going to talk about it for 50 years.
Right on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm still working through the library.
Yeah.
What might have been something Dr.
Looking at you,
Kovic
James R. Kirk. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But does it feel like we're being like? I kind of felt like they're on a good track with the second episode when they went to the Thingo Necropolis, the Promethean Necropolis, and they had to move the temple thing, and it was underneath and everything. It's like, oh, this is cool, But I kind of feel like in the last couple of episodes, when they were on the ISS Enterprise in the pocket of Thingo space, and in this episode, it kind of feels like we've kind of glossed over the actual acquisition of the puzzle piece. Do you know what I mean? Like they just we've got it now. Do you know what I mean? Like I kind of feel like we're being dudded out of some bit of some moments here,
That slapped me out of my chair. It's like we've already gotten so used to the conceit here of the one puzzle piece at a time. They didn't even show the recovery of the piece. We go from settling the calm, reflective planet mode of the week to, and by the way, here's the piece that was in the 5th tower. I was like, wow, we've gotten so far along that it's just a ho-hum thing to, that's the afterthought, getting the actual piece.
Yeah, because they did exactly the same thing in the previous episode where they said, Dr. Cho or something, she, and they did the whole history of the refugees or whatever. But they go, we just got it off the thing, and it's like, but we would have liked to see that. I think that would have been interesting in the same way. Seeing at least let's show us even if the episode's a few minutes longer, to see a team beam into where's
your Indiana Jones moment each time.
Yeah,
we want the big rolling ball.
Okay.
It just sort of feels like we're eating up a lot of screen time watching Tilly jog with bowls of water and so forth. They could have given us they could have given us a little bit of is it selfish of me to want the moment like in like the Indiana Jones on the pedestal with the fertility of the fertility idol of the Havitos or whatever, and I think we want a big ta-da moment. Oh, here's the puzzle piece, rather than just like, oh yeah, as you said before, Larry. Oh yeah, we've got it. Here it is. Yeah, no big deal.
They all look basically the same. I think the idea must be, what is it, Jamil? I've already Culber's Big Show. They actually show them reaching in and retrieving the bit, and I guess the feeling is that once you've seen one puzzle piece retrieved from a crevice, you've seen them all.
I think it's very, I think the actual the retrieval of it. I think that's a great description. Once you've seen, okay, great, here's the piece. It's the working out how to get there, and I think we've kind of got that in reverse with the Mirrors episode because we had the ticking clock of we knew Maul and Locke were in there. With this, of course, it's about figuring out communication, and it's about so it's about the journey to get the clue, as opposed to the physical clue itself.
To the journey,
the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, The real progenitors tech was the friends we made along the way.
I don't know.
I'm hearing one of those singing bowls going in harmony to that comment, Sean. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, I saw a lot of fan reaction going, "Oh, the new agey stuff with the singing bowls," and I went like, "Did you not watch the original series or Next Generation or DS9?" Or I was like, "That's very Star Trek." The fact that it hasn't been mentioned evidence on this series, it was a real throwback episode overall. But yes, I couldn't help thinking about when Tilly was doing the run. That was the slowest run for everybody I've ever seen. But when she was doing the run, I'm like, your disco T-shirt training came in real handy here, didn't it?
100%.
Yeah,
I did like that throwback to her and Burnham running around the corridors of Discovery or whatever. I can't remember whether because she say a line like "I'm Queen of Endurance" or something. Was that?
I love that because I love
that a throwback.
She's like Queen of Endurance, love it. Yeah, brilliant.
Did she do that back in season 1 when she was running the decks of the end of the Discovery?
Mm-hmm.
She did. I can't remember.
I don't know if that came up there. Here's the thing that intrigued me. She has this episode also, and I guess they've gotten more subtle about it because now my ears perk up. How often? There were 2 times they talked about the Academy. There's once when she says, "Oh, Michael, you should come teach at the Academy when we're done." I'm like, And then she says, "By the way, how's that going?" And the plot intercedes and she gets cut off. And then later on she says, "Yeah, I was just talking. We're so isolated here. I was just talking with one of my cadet students about whether she, her future." And I'm like, they're really keeping that Academy thing, lingering here. It's just a couple of doses, and even including Michael. But what really got me was when they go to the trouble to say the cadet that phoned her about her career was Cadet Ross, who was the cadet that served them in the opening scene of the first episode. And I went, was that? And they even bothered to say it in dialogue. And I went, was that? Did she have a name? And then I remembered when Red Directive happened, that whole opening scene, you're thinking, well, here's the first show back. They're getting everybody some screen time in the B crew. But they made this big point about giving the waiter officer cadet lines. And she had 2 or 3 lines, and they gave her a name, and she's in the credits as Cadet Raw. And then you never saw her again. She didn't figure into the plot. She was just in that opening scene. And I thought, wow, is that really some deep? Is that like our Starfleet guy on the isolated station, and we're going to come back and bookend with her at the end? I say her at the end, because
possibly
that was just a one-off. She gets mentioned 6 episodes in by name checked.
Yeah,
and I thought, are we setting something up?
For all we know, and actually, because I would not hate that. Like, say if we get a scene in the finale. Because they would have known, regardless of it being last episode or the end of the season, they would know that Academy is going into filming. Are we going to get some sort of commencement ceremony? Are we going to get some sort of, I would love to see a reveal of this amazing atrium they've built. That would be cool.
Yeah.
But I think we might have to wait a little bit for that. Are we going to get something like that? Is Tilly going to give a commencement speech? Is Burnham going to give a commencement speech? I wouldn't be shocked now if that was something that they do go with. And you see Tilly there, proud as punch with, now I'm assuming Ross is going to stay because they're going to be so ungrateful if they leave now and they're getting screen time and they're getting lines and they're getting remembered,
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that just to me, that's like talk about, a tick, not a ticking clock, but something that's just like put a pin in this and stick it back.
I loved as well. I was like, because that was, as much as anything, that was a nod to the audience going, "Oh well, Michael, we could really use you at the Academy. Oh, don't tempt me."
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
do tempt me. It'll be fine.
Yes. Absolutely.
If only other shows preceded and presaged a potential spin-off show.
What's that word? It begins with M. Mackey. Something about the Mackey. Bob Mackey, designer. That's what it was. Yeah, did some not,
Absolutely.
Do you think they're also setting something up with Hugh? Because I mean, like since his, I guess his connection to was it Janelle? It was kind of like
Janelle. He's having his little spiritual journey, isn't he?
It's been going for the last couple of episodes where he's been having these feelings of like he's experienced this wonderful experience, and then he's kind of getting withdrawal from it or even grief, and that's sort of like it's kind of like it's opened up his awareness of things, and he's questioning a lot of things, and it's kind of like, where is this leading? Maybe in the next few episodes, it would be What do you guys sort of think about that?
I think I am enjoying Culber's journey. I think he's probably the perfect character to do this with as well, because who other than Spock, who else has died and come back again? I mean, in the same timeline, they've all died and come back again about 27 times, but I mean, like in the same kind of like journey like this. And I'm particularly appreciating the fact that they have gone to the trouble of saying he is a man of science, which is why he's stumped. And I am enjoying that very much. Plus, I really want some of that food he was eating. Mofango, I believe.
Oh, yes.
It looks amazing.
Hey, mofo. Yeah. No, Janal was an awesome episode. We didn't talk about it today, but for an arc for him, but it was a major part of the episode. And now that they're continuing this arc, but he gets one scene, an episode to do it, it feels to me like they're treading dangerously on treading water. It's like something better break here, because if he keeps moping around about that, I mean, it's fine. Have a great, not a crisis of confidence or a crisis of spirituality, but just to be dumbstruck. It's a little bit like Spock after V'ger, I would think. So let him have it. But when it gets dished out in one scene at a time, there's a danger of, and now it's the Culber wandering around the ship, transfixed by the wonder of it all. I
definitely feel like
when he went in to find his partner to talk about it, and Paul is just sitting there staring at the puzzle piece in a lonely lab. I'm like, this is so little happening on the ship right now. Yeah, and he gets to just stare at this thing for hours on end with no one around, and then, could you come be my spiritual partner again? It was a weird moment to me, but. I
definitely feel it's going somewhere. Like at the end of the season, Culber's not going to be the same person that he started the season as. And I even speculate that, is even the relationship between Culber and Stamets going to still be intact by the end of the season? Or is Culber going to go, I need more out of life. I need to go and explore the galaxy and all this sort of stuff. And I know you're, a bit of a homebody, and I just got to do this for my own personal journey or whatever. I kind of feel like I feel like that's kind of the sort of thing they're leading towards here with him.
Are you thinking they're going to lean into that old divorce the gays trope? No way. No, I can't believe they would end on a downer like that, especially since they had Gray and Tall go their separate ways.
I reckon as well. I think Culber and Stamets, I think they will end strong. I think them not particularly being on the same page about this, I don't think is going to drive a wedge between them. Like Culber immediately, by the end of this episode, he sits down and has dinner with Book. And Book, Book had one of the best lines of the episode, which is it's a funny quirk of humans that we think that because something, only means something so meaningful to us that it means less. And that was just like, oh, David Ajala, you delivered the hell out of that one.
Because they're definitely setting up
we're
definitely setting up a reconciliation between Burnham and Book by the end of the season from the little moments that she had with him in the alternate timeline in Face the Strange, and then obviously Book at the end here when he's playing asteroids on the console, that in the shuttlecraft, and eating dinner with Culber.
Post burn,
because they're both independently saying, that relationship we had during, whatever it was, that period of time in between season 2 and 3, where we were traveling the galaxy together as couriers or whatever. They're both looking back fondly at that, and and the time they spent, in the relationship. So you kind of know that's the direction they're heading in. By the end of the season, I would be incredibly surprised if Book and Burnham weren't a couple again.
I'm right there with you. And I think as well, what they're doing, which is smart, is that they're not doing it episode 1, because in a way, Book still has to pay for what happened in season 4. You can't kind of give him a complete blank check on that. Yes, Tarka paid the ultimate price, but Book did, fire a bunch of torpedoes and an isolated weapon at Discovery at that time. Remember that time? Do you remember, Book? Do you remember when he fired that?
Oh,
we do.
And we're gonna see that in the next episode. We can't show the sneak peek scene from the episode, because when I've tried to do that before, CBS and Paramount Plus get very cranky at me. But we're seeing a return of Commander Nhan in our next episode, and she's a bit cranky at Book. Book seems to be he seems to be maybe in a place where he shouldn't be. Like he's trying to crowbar himself into the situation where obviously Mole and Lark have been captured and they're about to be interrogated, and he sort of wants in on it. But he's not meant to be there, and he's trying to weasel his way in. And there's a moment where Commander Nhan says to him, hang on, mate, the last time I crossed your path, as you just said, you fired an isolated weapon and a bunch of photon torpedoes at Discovery. And I think Book is just sort of like, yeah, but I'm trying to be better, So
and in fairness, he is.
Makes it all good.
Yeah. So yeah, how do you guys think this little relationship between Nhan and Book and so forth is going to factor into our next episode, Eriga, episode 7?
I mean, I think
Burnham's probably going to be, I guess, the fulcrum here, in the sense that she kind of will probably travel a middle ground, I guess. She kind of did that last time, I guess, we had the trouble last season where he went off on his own way, but with Dr. Tarka. But I think, I guess she'll probably, steer a middle ground, I guess, between them. But we'll probably get a bit of, conflict in the meantime.
Speaking of people who went off the deep end and went round the bend and then were able to find a way to come back, which I think has come up in dialogue once or twice, where she says something about, well, I'm someone that people gave a second chance to and came back. But the whole thing about why they split in the first place, in the moment of rushing to end the arc of a season and all that, and that scene where they're on the bed at the end and they even went back to it and started there at the beginning of the previously on, that all felt kind of, I don't want to say forced, but it kind of felt like, really? You two found each other and survived at the beginning of this whole jump to the future bit, and now you're going to, so it's almost like the slow motion removal of the long distance holo communicators in season 2 to fix the mistake. And so if they're going to undo that, this is the way to do it. I mean, I'm hoping by the end of the season, they're both sitting down singing thanks for the memory and trying to figure out how did we ever do that? Why did we even go there in the first place? Like, what fools we were to have split up over something so small. Not him firing isolated torpedoes in Discovery, but their personal bit after they had leaned on each other to survive in a lawless land. And so if they're going to fix something that was rash, that was done in the moment for plot, then that's fine. That's fine. The thing with Nhan is a nice sign once again that they're actually stopping, taking a breath, and remembering that they've been out for 5 seasons and that there are threads they can go back, not to make it too small a universe, but that there are threads that they could, if they can find a logical way to reintroduce somebody or something, like why not do it? That doesn't have to all be, flashbacks in a time shattered situation.
Yeah, and not kind of consolidating everything into one episode and going, right, this is our tick off the threads episode. Yeah. I'll say it was funny. I quite liked seeing Nan back in the preview because she's still there, she's ticking away, she's working away, and a handy way of bringing back a plot without having to Spock with a goatee. Was it too much to ask?
Yes. A quick shout out to Chuck A. Thank you so much, Chuck. What a great channel you have, Nick. Thank you so much, mate. Much appreciated. Always enjoyed your content and information. I'm really liking season 5 Discovery so far. Thank you so much, Chuck. Much appreciated. I think I don't know whether Burnham will be the fact that Burnham's just been through the whole Arium bump into her again or whatever during the time thing, whether seeing Nan again is going to bring up memories for her because she was the one that blew Arium out the airlock or whatever it was back in season 1, wasn't it?
And she'll do it again, damn it.
No, or season 2? Season 2? Season 2. Yeah. Yes.
Infiltration.
Yes. But now, before the last topic to have a bit of a chat about today, which will be we can if you guys in the chat feed have got any suggestions to add to this, I thought we'd do a little bit of a quick roundup of times where Star Trek and Star Wars ripped each other off. So. Being Star Wars Day, may the fourth be with you, everybody, for Star Wars Day. Yeah, so some borrowings where we might have had Star Wars and Star Trek taking a little bit of a page out of each other's books for their respective franchises. So I thought we'd quickly end on that as a little bit of a nod to Star Wars Day today. Obviously, just quickly, a couple of things I sort of wrote down. Obviously, hyperspace versus warp, phasers versus blasters. We've had a few locations. These desert planets that have sort of like I think the first episode of the season, I noted it was very Mos Eisley-esque, from Star Wars. That what was the planet called? Was it Quamau? The first episode.
Kumat.
Yeah.
Choose something.
We'll get there, Nick.
Yeah. The whole notion of alien bars, alien planets that sort of have sort of that kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Are there any notable observations you guys have on that front?
Well, I'll just say real fast. I always remember sitting down watching. The movie I saw was called Star Wars. It was not called Episode 4, A New Hope, but the movie I saw was called Star Wars, and hearing photon torpedoes and tractor beams and going, okay. I guess that's fair use, I guess. Of course, it had been pre-Star Trek, all concepts predating Star Trek, but yes. For
I thought that bit worked.
And that's an on-the-nose thing, not so much a concept or a trope. But right out of the gate, it feels like Star Wars was smart enough just to go with something and not worry about it.
I remember that bit where Star Trek just ripped off Star Wars by making a movie. I mean, that was Star Wars material. I mean, that was their world. That was their galaxy. We were a TV show. But it is funny. I mean, like, if it wasn't for Star Wars, we wouldn't have the motion picture.
But if it wasn't for Star Trek, the explosion in syndication, there would be. George Lucas credits Gene with the last bit of his financing he got because of the money, not just the fact that it was popular, but syndicated stations were exploding with their ratings. The Starfleet Tech Manual was number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list for like 16 weeks. I mean, there was actual money, and the cons were starting to turn over money, people paying bucks to go. So it was like, oh, okay, this isn't just a bunch of rabid kids. It's actually translating into dollars. We'll loan you actually the last chunk of money you need to make your little movie, George.
You might know this better than I, Larry. Am I right in saying in the remastered original trilogy, they added effectively the Praxis explosion to the destruction of the Death Star?
No, but the other way around, it was definitely the inspiration for it. It drove me up the wall because I'm really, the explosion is only in a ring, like the emitter.
Yeah,
I don't know. It should have been like an all points thing, but that when we were emulating, the ring explosion.
Yeah, basically what happened to the Armagos Observatory is what should have happened. But listen, it's fine. It's fine. It's grand.
It looks so cool in 1990.
Well, speaking of the Death Star, you also had the Doomsday Planet Killer. That was another kind of like, I guess, you know, similar thing, you know, in terms of a planetary. I guess the Planet Killer actually destroyed entire systems. It was beyond a Death Star, but that was another thing. But I guess there's a lot of tropes where you have to get somewhere fast. So you're going to have similarities like hyperspace or warp travel, or maybe if you're in the Dune universe, space bending or space folding.
You're going to have something. You have to have a whatever you call it, that's got to be it.
Yeah, there's thing is actually just to Ellie use the example of Picard season 3 flying through the Borg cube. Now, if that wasn't the Death Star trench run,
that's true. Very much so.
And I think actually, in fairness, I think he got on record and said, "Oh no, 100%. That was the inspiration. Like, there's no, there's no humming and hawing about it."
I mean, yes, even talking about the Breen before. Princess Leia's disguise. Yeah, you were just about to say that, Larry.
In fact, here's the funny thing: the Breen started off as Brannon Braga's joke about the biggest bad that we've never seen before, and he just came up with that, and they would drop it into, well, I don't know if these disruptors, they're either Romulan or Breen or what's it, and they're like, and you'd hear it again, and that was the joke for a long time, and it wasn't until the Breen turns up in the internment camp on the DS9 2 part of the Dominion camp, and it's don't turn your back on a Breen and all that. Well, no, I'm sorry, Dozaria, when they're looking for Ducat's daughter and wife, and there's Breen on there. You don't see a Breen, but Kira puts on a Breen outfit, a uniform, and comes out disguised, and so it's a Breen. No, it's really me, haha. But that's the first time you had anything Breen visual, and then you finally get a Breen who's the guy who's apparently out, and then he jumps up and shoots somebody. But that snout helmet, Bob Black, they designed it. Of course, they had a helmet maker to do it. And the minute it aired, people all said, "What did you do? Rip off the Star Wars guys?" And they didn't use it for years. After that, they kind of just kept it in the closet. And if you're going to mention Breen, we have to use that helmet because we paid $5,000 for it. We have to use it, but everybody thinks it's Star Wars and it's a rip off. So it was really there was a long time there where they didn't show the Breen until you got to the Dominion War, and they were like, "Oh, hell with it, just go with it," because of people saying, "Did you just rip off Star Wars on this very iconic visual thing?" It's like, and if it was such a dead ringer, but they really didn't mean to. They didn't mean to like, "Oh, I love that design, let's just copy it." It just was kind of a quasi accident.
Yeah,
or at least that's what Bob Blackman told me. So.
Okay.
I ain't going to call him a liar, so that works for me.
Yes.
One of the best crossovers, I only shared the link with my nephew earlier on today, is Tim Russ explaining the Star War. That clip that does the rounds every year for May the 4th. I never fail to laugh at that one. Everyone gets a middle except Pill. Sorry, Pill. Just brilliant.
What other examples have we got? I wrote down Han Solo and is it Thaddeus O'Connor? That's very very. I think David, you mentioned the Doomsday Machine and the Death Star. I mean, even actors that have done both Star Wars and Star Trek. Simon Pegg. He was Scotty in the J.J. Abrams movies, and he was Unkar Plutt, I think it was, in Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, George Takei. George Takei was obviously Sulu, and then he was a gangster, a Nemoidian gangster in Clone Wars called Lock Durd. There have been, what else? I think.
No
Brent
comments
Spiner
on the
in
Asian
Rebels.
accent then for the Nemoidians.
Oh, the Nemoid. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, very. Very true. I mean, yeah, even the sort of parallels between the Bajoran resistance, on Cardassia and the rebellion, there's sort of, shades of that, I suppose, in that as well. But yeah, lots of links, and you can read into them as much as you like. Some of them probably are true, and some of them are false, and some of them are just purely coincidence.
Well, I think just to put it, there's not a longer list here and there might be once we get really anal, and some one-off costume or one-off visual effects person does their own little homage and it passes muster, and then later on somebody says, hey, that was, it wasn't like this big corporate intention to pay homage back and forth. And Star Wars, mainly a movie franchise, until recently, finally they figured out that they could pump out a lot of content on small screen, and Star Trek being mostly small screen and all that, so there's differences. But I think it's a great testament, the fact that they've both kind of, despite the world outside the mundane world trying to cram them in the same box, that they both kind of followed an independent path and not worried about the other. And the whole trumped up, like the Star Wars Star Trek debate always seemed ridiculous to me. That was like people that didn't. I think people have their favorite one or the other, and I feel like I've read just people talking about their whether they're professionals or just fans talking in columns. I seem recently to have seen a lot of people say, well, I was a Star Wars fan and I finally gave Star Trek a try. Maybe that's because I'm reading it in a Star Trek forum situation. But I seem like because it's been a much bigger franchise, just scale wise, money wise. I guess they had better toys in the 80s, and that was a secret ingredient. Star Trek always had more hours on screen, but they had better, longer lasting toys, I guess. I don't know. But maybe there's room for people to come over and find it. I don't know. The whole Star Trek thing has always amused me.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, anybody, before we wrap up the stream for today?
I'll be sad when Discovery's done. I will be. I think it has been a bumpy road. That the ship getting from there. But I think without Discovery, and this is without Discovery, we wouldn't have Picard, we wouldn't have Strange New Worlds, we wouldn't have Lower Decks, and we wouldn't have Prodigy. And knocking on, of course, we wouldn't have Starfleet Academy, because if it had failed, like the comments tell us it has every single day, as Alex Kurtzman's being fired again, if it had failed, we would have none of those. I think that it's going to be like, when I go back and I do, the episode 1 rewatch of Discovery all the way through, there's going to be the bits that, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember hating this the first time around. It's like, I think I used to enjoy this one. This hasn't aged as well. It's going to be the one that is maybe as uneven as any other Trek. And I'm bloody glad it exists.
Yeah.
I really am. Plus the sheer number of uniforms we've got out of this show has just been fun. Terrible for my wallet.
Very true. Very true. All right, guys. Well, thanks everyone so much for coming along today and watching the show. Much appreciated your viewership and everything there. I'd like to thank my amazing guests, great individuals to always have on. You guys are always welcome here anytime. Thank you so much, Seán.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, always a pleasure, mate. Anytime, Larry, and thank you so much for coming on again. You guys, I think the last episode you guys were on together as well last time, so there's a bit of a repeat from last year's episode. So good on that one. And thank you. and thank you as always, David.
No worries.
Guys, I'll be. I might be talking tomorrow about the sneak peek scene for next episode. Well, I want to check a look at that in a bit more detail and see what that's all about, and we'll go over that. But thanks everyone for joining the show today. Much appreciated, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, Trek well, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.